Okay, we are going to change a Patriot PS15, change the modulant to the new retrofit module. The easiest thing to say is you got to take the unit apart and just completely gut the inside of it. So we'll start doing that right now. To separate the front from the back, they've got little snap tabs in the bottom. It's better if you raise it up a little bit, just push down on those tabs, and they'll separate the front from the back. Stand that up, and right now we're going to get just everything out of the way, because everything's going to be replaced other than the solar panel. Make sure you take that little regulator off because you can't get the cover fit when you're done with it. And you won't be needing it because the new module has it built into it. Okay, for the time being, we're going to slide this out of the way. We're going to start dismantling the internal parts. This wiring assembly, we won't be needing that, so we've got to pull it out of the unit. To do that, you've got to get into the battery box. That battery box has two little tabs you push down on and then gently pry the unit apart. Take the battery out. You don't need it in the way while you're working on it. It adds heft to it. And these wires have to come out. Set them aside, we won't be needing them. And then we start with the new stuff. The module comes in this little box with all the required parts to do what we need to do here. We'll get that out of the way. This is the module. This is going to be your solar panel lead, and this is your battery lead. The knobs, this unit will have knobs on the side where the old PS15 didn't. And that's all the apparatus to put the knobs and everything on with. That's a cover for your module when you get done. The PS15 originally didn't have a cover on. And this is a new label that you will replace at the end of everything. That will replace that label there. We'll set it all aside. We'll open this, hopefully. They wrap them pretty tight, but they do that to protect the little switch that's on there. So we'll be careful when you unwrap it not to damage that switch, because it's a pretty lightweight switch. Little switch right there. Okay, the board will go in like this with your battery connection and your solar panel connection pointing up and towards the unit facing you. And the little places where the original module was screwed in, the holes line up to that. So we'll put screws in that. But before we do, we got to finish prepping this to make way for our new screws and everything. The battery box is held in place by a hinge joint that is aided by these little plugs right here. They have to come out. They just simply pry out. And you can do this one of two ways. I like to take the battery box out of the way for the time being so it doesn't get in the way. Just your preference, what you want to do with that. And then, as you can see, you got a bare start. What you do next is you'll need to put your bolts in that hold the leads from the module to each side. They're polarized, so you know which one's which. This one's going to be, the longest one's going to be your ground, and the short one's going to be for your hot lead going to your fence post. And if you look at the unit, you've got an arrow there, lightning bolt, signifies the hot side, and that's the ground side. So keep that oriented. You can't really get them wrong because the ground lead's the longest, and you just got to go across the board finish to fit that part right there. Just lay that in there for the time being. Then you have a bolt assembly. We began by putting the hot side in first. Slide that bolt through the hoop, and in those little plugs that you pulled out, you have an access hole now down inside there that you've got to put that bolt through. And when you get the bolt through there, and it's a chore if you don't have small hands, and in fact it may be better if we take a little switch out, because we won't be using the switch either. It just gets in the way, plus it's not necessary on the new unit. And then we fit that bolt through that hole where that plug was. And I like doing it this way, that way you get a good feel of what's going on. And then you can see how that fit through there. We're going to do the same thing on the other side. And when you do this, you want to make sure you get this wire out of the way so whenever you start buckling everything back together, it doesn't get in your way. Drop that in there. Put the bolt through there and line it up with that hole. So on this side, and as you can see, we've got it pretty much where it needs to be. The board needs to come up a little. Then you can go ahead at this point. You can either screw that board in. I personally like to wait and do that last till we get the bolts and everything in place, and then we tighten that board up. Okay, lay that back down like this. Put this back on. Move it up, and you got a big flat washer that goes on first. And that's just kind of help guide that clamping device on there. Then you have a locking washer. And you put it on. Then you spin the nut on. And we'll just put it finger tight for the time being. And we'll come back over here and do the same thing. Locking washer and spin the nut on. And I like to run those down finger tight. Then you take a 10mm deep well socket. It's got to be deep well because it's got to fit over that bolt. And you just take and tweak it until it's snug. You don't have to over tighten it. And then, while we're here, we're going to put these little things on. These are where your new wire assembly will attach to your hot and negative side. This is your hot side, so we put a washer on, we put this on, then we put another washer on. Then we spin on the red knob, which is for your hot side. And that doesn't have to be very tight because the customer will have to take it off anyway. Or may have to take it off if he wants to reattach anything there. And do the same thing to the other side. And this little tab you can bend if it gets in your way. You can bend it any direction you want, just where you can tighten things up. Whenever the final assembly is done, you hook it to your fence, you want those to be snug, where you don't lose any electricity from the fence. So, then we can let back down now. And then we'll line it up. You can see where everything lines up, the little pegs where the old module was, that fits right over them. And you got two little Phillips head screws. And it's nice to have a little interchangeable screwdriver from flathead to Phillips head to start these with. These are small screws, so I like to start them with a small driver first, then I'll tighten them up with a big driver. You don't want to over tighten them, but you can run these down until the board doesn't move. Just make it snug. As you can see, it's snug, the board doesn't move. Now, we're ready to attach the battery wire and the solar panel wire. On the battery lead, it goes in through this, and it's the largest of the leads. It's got a big thick end on it, 3 prongs. The solar panel only has 2. And you fit it in through that middle opening there, right below the solar box. And you can route that just for the time being, but it'll eventually wind up there anyway. You go ahead and plug it in so it's out of your way. And it's keyed where it only fits one way. And that'll be for your battery. And we won't hook the battery up to the last. That way you don't take a chance of turning it on accidentally.